Hello and welcome to our Berytos post-mortem. They can start being called after-action reviews or something similar if I win a game, but for now they're just going to be post-mortems. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and bring us to the final turn that we had sort of anything to do, where we lose our capital. And what I want to do for this video is go through what I think were the strategic mistakes that I made, the tactical mistakes that I made, and then lessons that I've sort of learned for going forwards, and to sort of consider what I could have done differently. Because certainly by no means was this a foregone conclusion, and indeed I think I have found numerous issues that I think could have very much changed the outcome. So I'm going to start with the strategic failures, and we're sort of going to look at the map here as we go through them. But I think the first strategic failure was sort of simply turning a blind eye to the problem. And I recall, so I have not necessarily gone through and watched every single episode or reviewed every turn, but I remember noting early that Lanka was a problem, and that they had a strong bless, and that we were going to need a plan to do something about it. And then I never developed that plan. And I just was sort of hoping that they would go and attack TNC, which didn't happen. And then we died. And so I think that I need to do a better job of not, I think I identified the problem, but actually then sticking to what that problem was and working it through to a conclusion. I think I didn't at the time see a way to get out of it. And so I just sort of tried to pretend it didn't exist, which is not effective. It doesn't work. It's not a good idea. So I think that was the first strategic mistake, is simply pretending that the problem didn't exist. I think the second strategic mistake, and some of this is going to end up blending together between strategy, tactics, lessons learned, is because I didn't try and come up with a plan, I ended up with the wrong research. I think that further sort of testing has I think revealed that what I really needed to win this fight. Let's go ahead and look at the research that we did have, right? So this is a couple turns after we lost the big fight, so we'd have to go back. But we didn't have access to Enchantment 4 when we took the big fight. And that meant that we didn't have access to anti-magic. And against the Blood Vengeance Sacreds, we simply needed anti-magic, I think. And so what we didn't need, though, was Construction 4. Construction 4 was 100% like a greed luxury play to start getting my blood economy going with Dowsing Rods. But that research could have been much better put to Enchantment 4. Because we only missed Enchantment 4 by like a turn. Like, we were very close. We also could have just not taken the fight and waited for it to come around, but I just didn't realize exactly how important it was going to be. So that was a huge mistake. Our research priorities were not correct. We didn't need as much blood. We didn't need as much construction. I think evocation came after too. This is a couple turns, so I don't remember exactly when we sort of got to what, but Enchantment 4 was needed a lot earlier. 100%. So we needed Enchantment 4. We needed it sooner to take that fight. So research priorities, sort of hand in hand with a lack of identifying sort of dealing with the problem, misidentified research priorities. The next one is not spending the money as effectively enough to get enough priests. So when I went back and checked on the turn, we only had 3 priests, 3 Beryton priests that accompanied my whole army. That's absolutely wildly wrong. We had a ton, they're all dead now, but we had a ton of sages. We had 19 Beryton sages. We never built a temple here at the Feral Woods, and we simply needed to spend the money on the temple. We needed to get the priests, so that we could do a big blood communion or a big blood Sabbath, so that we could either spam out higher level spells, more elementals, put the brides in those communions, or leave the brides separate. And with the anti-magic helping against blood vengeance, allowing our Beryton priests to spam out Smite Demon, because you actually, and having a lot of them to spam out Smite Demon, because you only need 2 of the Beryton priests as communion slaves or Sabbath slaves to let everybody do an infinite number of those holy spells, because they have no fatigue cost. Though of course they could go off script and start doing other stuff, but if we'd had a lot more priests and a lot fewer of the sages, I think we could have been much more likely to survive. Now we needed the research, right? So there's some trade-off, but I think the difference between the sage research and the priest research is pretty small. So this is 15, and the priests are 14. Oh, this guy has some experience stars, so I think a generic priest is only 12. So I mean, there's absolutely a difference. This guy's only 14. I'm not sure why this one is. I'm not immediately sure. Oh, he has an experience star. So with no experience stars, it's 14 versus 12. So it's not nothing, but I think it's definitely a mistake. And we needed to have more Beryton priests. So I think that was another big strategy mistake. Potentially with that, right, is did we get brides too early? The brides are obviously super awesome. They're cap only. They're slow to recruit. We want to get as many as we can. But we didn't have enough gold to build the temple. We weren't building enough priests. So I think it's possible that we moved into brides too soon and should have kept the priests going a little bit longer. I'm not 100% sure on that, though, but it seems possible. We also didn't successfully transition to our higher quality troops, really. At the end, I had archers and I had Beryton spearmen, and I really should have probably stopped making the spear guys as much and moved into one of these other heavier infantries or the elite soldiers. Yeah, maybe these guys are worth it because they have the javelin and that's good against what Lanka's doing. Maybe. But I think I probably needed to do a little bit more transitioning into these tougher troops. I think that's going to be it for now from a strategy perspective. I think you could certainly say, picking Berytos on a map where you're guaranteed not to get water and have very low chances of getting a waste is a strategic mistake, but that's sort of outside what we're doing here. Also, from a, you could say diplomacy is perhaps a strategic mistake, and maybe I could have coerced Lanka or TNC to attack each other. But I had put out some diplomatic feelers and didn't get anywhere, and I think just sort of the nature of this map is going to make that difficult. So I'm not super worried about that. But if there's any other big, strategy mistakes, I'd also love to. Expanding poorly is not really a strategy mistake per se, although it's something that needs to be corrected. But yeah, if there's any other big strategy mistakes anybody think they saw, I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts. But I'm going to move from the strategical failures into the tactical failures. And particularly looking at that last fight, though there are other things along the way that I think we could have done better. So I actually went ahead and let's jump back. I made a test game. I think this should be a don't host. I went ahead and put a test game. This is not exactly what was out there, but this is very similar to the forces that were involved. Except that we did Enchantment 4, and I left myself a Construction 2. And like a low Evo. So this we have a handful more of these Colossi. It's just because I counted wrong. We still have our big archers. We got lots of guys on Guard Commander. We've got, this guy is just taking the place of a Stormcaller. Because the only thing that was really relevant in this is that he has Astral, so he's going to use the 3 priests to communion up, and then the 1 extra pearl to get up to anti-magic. And then we also went ahead and actually thought through, we still didn't even do it right on this person. Did we do it right on any of these others? No, they don't show up here. I have access to reinvigoration, and I didn't use it, and that is so silly. So, all of our brides, or most of the brides now, have been reconfigured to cast some fire elementals, and then do a reinvigoration, and then do an air elemental. In addition to some strength of giant still from enchantment 3. This is going to let us put a lot more elementals out on the field. And we also, doing the air elementals later might mean that they can get at the back line a little bit more easily, instead of before where they sort of jumped in the front and weren't very successful. Let's go ahead and play this. I still didn't get it quite right. You know, I've got people all running forwards. But we've got our Divine Blessing. Should have had him on hold. You can see we're still certainly going to fail a decent number of things, but it's a lot fewer. Imps come in, they're problematic, they're going to mess us up a lot. But we have a lot more fire elementals out than we did before. And our bride, like we look at the bride, what is it? B. Fire elemental, fire elemental. So she was off. Did this one go off script? She did go off script. She decided she didn't want to reinvigorate and did imps instead. Did they all do that? And is now just checking out evocations. How about you? What did you do? She's trying to banish. Did Phoenix Pyre summon? She's doing agonies. It's interesting that they didn't want to. I guess their fatigue was too high. I'm confused why they didn't cast the reinvigorations. Maybe that's a different problem we have. Did anybody cast reinvigoration? No, agony. Did I not? I guess I'll have to. We'll jump out of this at the end and see if it's scripted. Scripted right. But we've got more elementals in the fight than we did before. Our lines are holding up a bit better. We dealt with most of the imps. We still have not really managed to get at their mage core at all. And when we go ahead and play this forward, I think just the collective amount of us taking a lot less damage from Blood Vengeance is going to mean that we actually take this fight. Now, again, it's not a perfect thing, right? We had about 20 more Colossi than we actually did, so that's a bit off. And some of their Rakshasas were not as kitted the way they should have been, though I don't think that made a huge difference overall given the context. But it's not exactly you know, what could have happened or what would have happened, but I think it shows that this was a winnable battle. And indeed, right, I think we still had more that we could have done to even script this better. I really thought that these people were scripted to do reinvigoration. They are. I'm not really sure why they wouldn't do that, right? Because so Phoenix Power is 20 fatigue, fire elementals are 100, and they did their fire elementals. Let's go ahead and watch it one more time and see how their fatigue looks after the second fire elemental. Phoenix fire elemental. Did she only do one fire elemental? It didn't. Okay, she used up both gems casting one fire elemental, but still at 87 fatigue. And she's got axe. Did the blood slaves die? Oh, there's no more blood. Where did the blood slaves go? Let's go back in. Oh, there's the blood. Okay, now she's got one right there. Phoenix Power. Maybe it's gonna get. Somebody cast. Where did those blood slaves go? Who used up those blood slaves? I'm a little lost. You guys successfully did that. There's still blood slaves over here. There's still slaves over here. Mid fire elemental. Some fire elemental. Fire elemental. Imps come in. Armament of Courage. I guess this blood slave must have died from something. I don't know if they show up in the unit tab or not. Okay, they are. Alright, we can see Lankas. They use them all up. We brought one that got... I guess you can't see what happened to them. Even this one. Okay. I guess they must have died. But in any event, it's still right. Even in this version, which still isn't quite scripted right, I could have given them more blood slaves. Been able to successfully get off the rest of their script, and maybe that would have even. There goes some elementals. So now I'm sure they're super fatigued. No, they're not even fatigued out. She was higher level air. Yep. She fatigued out. So again, even here there was a lot of room for improvement, but I could have better utilized their whole kits using the blood piece to actually affect a victory here. So tactical mistake. Didn't utilize all the spells that my brides had available sort of in the right combination. I just sort of threw some air elementals at the problem and said, oh, that ought to do it. Works for Caleb. But it didn't work here. So that would have just, having that reinvigoration, if it had worked right, would have let me bring more elementals to the fight. Kept my people casting. Could have been really helpful. We also, I think, could have expanded better by throwing some blood slaves onto the priests and doing some summon groups on the tougher provinces. That probably would have gone a long way in increasing our expansion success rate. So some misses there on utilizing what blood gives us. And so finally, I'm going to move to sort of the lessons learned for me that I'm really going to take from this game, besides just the specific tactics. Which are do a better job of testing before I had already lost the game, right? If you want to test, you should do it before you lose the game, not prove that you can win after you lost the game. It's sort of an order of operations here that only works one way. So should have done more to actually test this before it started. I was overconfident in my ability to beat that army, so that was on me. I failed the Berytos peoples. I needed to do a better job of testing expansion on the map we were playing on. I'd done a lot of testing on various map nuke maps, but I'd only tested a little bit on the Mountain Arena map. And it definitely plays a little bit differently than a map nuke map. So I should have done more expansion testing on that map instead of on a generic map nuke map. I also think that I could test expansion better. I think in games, I tend to think that I have less time in real player games. I tend to feel that I have less time to expand, and it makes me take rush decisions that we end up losing, even if I know they're risky. I end up going for the end because like, oh, I don't have time. I have to gamble on this, and I don't. I don't need to slow down and sort of play the way that I test, and actually make that happen. So I think those were sort of the big lessons that I'm going to try and take away are test before it's too late, and then really focus on making sure expansion works, because otherwise it's going to be hard to get anywhere. So this is my Berytos post-mortem from my perspective. I'd love to hear all the comments on other things that could have been done differently, whether it's strategy, tactics, lessons that I need to learn, etc. So, and again, I'm recording this before most of the videos have gone up because I want to keep it fresh. So I may, if you said something in the comments that I just repeated, then you were just faster than I was. But that's that's sort of the general gist here. So thanks everyone for joining me, and hopefully we won't have to do too many more of these postmortems before we get ourselves a win. So thank you very much for joining me, and have a nice day.